Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, October 1st, 2013, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business that may come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Friday, September 27, 2013, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star-Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, the Alternative Press, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of the meeting. Dana, can we do a roll call?
Rich Matesic.
Here.
Lucy Beegler. Here. Ann Carey. Here. Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Gallagher.
Here.
Roseanne Kirstead.
Yes.
Ginny Letts.
Here.
Gretchen Olette.
Here.
Mitch Slater.
Here.
Thank you. Roseanne, could you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements. Brendan, anything down your end?
Nope.
Gretchen?
No.
Mark?
Yes, sir. This is about the upcoming bond referendum. Westfield residents will have the opportunity to reduce their tax obligation on the roof project bond that was approved by voters on December 12, 2012. The state has approved their application for $2.7 million in construction aid on the school roof work planned for next summer. This newly released aid means that the result will be a $2.7 million reduction in taxes over the life of the bond. The state requires the approval by voters of this grant, which will appear in the form of a replacement bond referendum on November 5th, 2013. If the new replacement bond is not approved by Westfield voters on November 5th, Westfield will lose the $2.7 million grant for the roofing work. Then, the previously passed referendum, December of 2012, will remain in effect. The roofs will still be repaired, but without state aid and without a reduction in the tax levy. For those that are interested and need the information about absentee ballots, for more information on the November replacement bond, please check www.westfieldnjk12.org. There's also information about voter registration and voting by mail on that site.
Okay, and we have really smart kids here in Westfield, and 28 of them got perfect SAT and ACT scores at Westfield High School. Westfield High School students have achieved 28 perfect scores in May and June on the SAT and ACT standardized tests. They include Ben Eisenberg in molecular biology, Shay Fitzpatrick in writing, Mark Gillespie, U.S. history and chemistry, David Gruskin, U.S. history and reading, Lucia Liu, molecular biology, math and writing, Nicholas Menora, Math 2, and Jill Rosenfeld, U.S. History, Alexa Derman, Writing, Philip Edwards, Math 2, Rachel Fan, Math 2 and Math, Edwin Gee, Math 2, Kristen Haug, Chemistry, Claire Lee, Math 2, Jason Liu, Math 2, Griffin Mooney, Math 2, Matthew Nuzzo, Math 2, Thomas Pyle, Math 2, Andrew Stockwell, Math 2. Math 2 is obviously a big one. Samuel Sokolin, Math 2, Dara Tucker, Math 2, Alexandra Mossawir, Reading and Writing, and Fraser Wiest got a perfect score in the ACT, English, Math, Reading, and Science. Way to go, Fraser. Principal Peter Renwick personally commended each student for outstanding achievement, stating it speaks volumes about your abilities and your commitment to education. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done to you.
Lucy?
Sure.
Andrew Zale, 11th grader at Westville High School, is one of 25 finalists among 2,000 middle and high school students in New Jersey who participated in the 2013 Mahatma Gandhi Art and Writing Contest sponsored by the Association of Indians in America, South Jersey chapter. The purpose of the contest is to raise awareness of nonviolence, racial harmony, and peace. The contest theme, An Eye for an Eye Makes the Whole World Blind, prompted Andrew to draw upon a personal incident in his life where his own restraint prevailed. The incident is described in his poem entitled The Gift After the Curse. Andrew has been writing poetry since 5th grade. It became of greater interest to him in the 7th grade at Edison Intermediate School, where he said his teacher, Mr. Lazaro, invested a lot of time in conveying themes. Andrew is also in the journalism program at Westville High School. The 3 top contestants from art and writing categories will be announced at the Mahatma Gandhi Award ceremony on October 6th in Princeton University. We wish Andrew continued success and pleasure in his writing endeavors. Good job, Andrew.
All right, and representing sports tonight, the athletic department announces that the class of 2013 has 31 student athletes projected to compete at the collegiate level. That's roughly 7% of the class of 2013, and the national average of graduating seniors who participate in collegiate athletics is 2%. It's a very impressive number, and congratulations to all of our student athletes and graduates.
I guess it's my turn.
You're up.
I'm up. For many years, Westfield High School has hosted Girls Learn International, a club which actually began here through the inspiration of former board member Lisa Alter. It has since been embraced by social studies teacher Karen Lust. Girls Learn International educates and energizes U.S. students in the global movement for girls' access to education. It pairs chapters in the United States middle schools and high schools with partner schools in countries where girls still lag behind boys in access to education, and where girls are far less likely than boys to stay in school past the primary grades. An anthology entitled Stand Up was published and just recently released. It focuses on the experiences of young human rights advocates and includes a personal narrative about Girls Learn International, written by Westfield student Isabella Gelfand. It is called Luck of the Draw. The link to the blog where you can read her story is at, okay, this is a web page identifier, http:// girlslearn.net/category/blog/ and I'm sure that this information will be on the district website so that you will have a hot link access to the information. And congratulations.
Okay. All right, I have one last announcement on the Superintendent of the Year. We have been notified by the Superintendent's Roundtable of Union County that Dr. Dolan has been named Union County Superintendent of the Year. At our next regular board meeting, scheduled for October 15th, Dr. Dolan will receive a plaque representing this honor. Guests at our meeting who will make this presentation will include Judith Ratner, President of Union County Superintendent's Roundtable, and Dr. Richard Boza, the Executive Director of the New Jersey Association of School Administrators. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Quite an
much.
honor.
Thank you.
We look forward to honoring you in 2 weeks. All right. We then go to the superintendent's report. I'm sorry. First, I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, we'll go to the Superintendent of the Year report.
Thank you. So last May, we conducted a school climate survey, and it was an online survey, and we focused on students in grades 5, 8, and 10, as well as the parents of students in those grades and the staff members who work with students in those grades. And in the end, we had over 150 parents who responded, over 200 teachers who responded. For 5th grade students, we had 373 students, 8th grade 386, and 10th grade 366. because we were questioning both students as young as 5th grade and adults, some of the questions were phrased differently so that students of different ages could understand it. And we also had some difference in how they answered, depending on their ages. Now, online surveys such as this really can be quite efficient. You can gather a lot of data, but honestly, they are only the beginning of understanding what you have accumulated by the data. One of the frustrations of a survey like this is you can get whether someone always agrees strongly or agrees or disagrees, but you don't get the answer to why. And you can, but on an online survey, the way we were constructing it, we were not asking that question why. So you'll see when we get to some of the answers, we're not sure why in a few of the cases. We're investigating it, but we don't honestly know why in each case. But at each school in the district, there is a school safety team, and the school safety team is reviewing the results and putting that against other data that they have. For example, each school safety team is also looking at the discipline reports from last year and looking at their harassment, intimidation, and bullying records and seeing if that provides any support or any explanation as to how some of these numbers can make sense. So, we begin with, we asked both the parents and the staff and the students in the upper grades, whether the students felt safe at school. And you can see pretty overwhelmingly that the parents believe, over 90% of the parents are sure that the students feel safe at school. Some were neutral on this question, and very few ended up saying that they disagreed. As a matter of fact, I believe the number was actually one parent saying that their child was not safe.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, mine is, okay, sorry. I have the wrong copies, that's all. So I was looking at my paper and it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Similarly, when we asked staff, they had a similar response. When we came to the 8th grade students, the numbers for those students who disagreed a little bit with the statement were just a little bit higher. So, for example, in 8th grade, we found that approximately 10 students in each of the intermediate schools said that they didn't feel safe at school. And that honestly surprised us. We did talk about that a little bit. We found the same thing actually at the high school, where we had approximately, out of all the students who were interviewed, we found about 10. We're still looking into exactly why, but one of the reasons we think we had this answer is, if you remember, this was done in May. That was just 5 months after Newtown. And we certainly had some students last year who were having difficulty dealing with hearing all of the news about what had happened. So we don't know that that's entirely the answer, but we do think it perhaps is part of the answer. We then asked, as anyone who watches our board meetings or reads our synopsis, you know that we really have been focusing on making sure that throughout our schools, the adults and the students are respecting each other, and that our next generations are learning the importance of respecting others and dealing with others who may be different in a respectful way. So we had a series of questions about whether adults were treating students with respect and whether students were treating others with respect. And you can see that in general, that certainly is the case. Both the parents and the staff members feel that that is being accomplished. It gets just a little more interesting when we go to the students, however. So if we look at the 5th grade students, pretty much agree that the adults are treating the students with respect. They're not so sure that all the students are doing that all the time, that they're treating each other with respect. And then if we move to the 8th grade, again, you can see in general, although I think we have room for improvement there, but in general, they believe that the teachers are treating them with respect. But again, there are some concerning numbers there about the students treating each other with respect. And when you look at the high school, you see a similar pattern there. So certainly, as we reflect on what we learned last year, and if we look at our discipline records, if we look at our harassment, intimidation, and bullying numbers, There were a large percentage of those that had to do with incidents started either with texting or on the internet. A large percentage of those. They might have started on a Saturday, they might have started at night, they might have started in the summer. But it is very, very easy to be anonymous on the internet. It is easier to tell somebody, make fun of someone, call someone name, make fun of something they did when you're just texting and pushing buttons than if you are standing next to someone. And as we looked at the numbers, one of the things we decided we needed to do this year, we had done it last year and the year before, but we needed to heighten our efforts, were to focus on this because there are more and more challenges using technology of different types. So, for example, we have two very, very recent examples I can give you of how we're trying to address that. At the very beginning of the year, Westfield High School, on September 9th, the administrators had meetings with each of the grade levels up there, and part of what was reviewed were expectations for how students were to use social media. And there were even suggestions as to, there are some social media sites you might want to stay away from completely, because their entire purpose is to allow people to anonymously put up information that is hurtful to others. And so the more that both our students are aware of that and the more parents are aware of that, we hope that that lessens and that becomes an older fad as opposed to something that everyone is doing. And just last night, both intermediate schools held a parent session presented by John Halligan. John Halligan had a son who was a middle schooler who was terribly bullied online and in person also, but most of it was online, and the parents weren't even aware of it. John Halligan tells his very personal story. During the day, he spoke to all 1,600 of our students at Edison and Roosevelt School, and at night he spoke specifically to parents, talked about his own experience, and then gave some suggestions, and also gave some warnings to parents and suggested ground rules that be laid down by parents for the use of technology. Those efforts were done at the beginning of the year because of some of the data that we did find in this survey. And that, again, has been one of our efforts. I thought it would also be helpful, continuing on the same vein, this talks about students being teased, picked on, made fun of, or called names. Now, we do a great deal of instruction in this, but we certainly have more to do, and we have to make sure that our students continue to learn that we need to respect each other. Just to give you an example of some of the trainings that we accomplished last year. There we are. The trainings on this slide all had to do with training the adults who work with students, whether that is training teachers or administrators or parents. So this is all training that all adults have an awareness of what we should expect from our children and how to help support our children in this regard. And then moving on, these are programs that were offered to elementary students, trying in different ways to address our youngest students and our students in the upper elementary grades. Some of them are done in small groups, some are done school-wide, some are done grade-wide. At the intermediate school, it changes again. And you try to get students more and more involved because they are older and can be more responsible. You train some peer leaders who can train the younger students. And then at the high school, it changes again. They start very early at the high school, the transition program for all incoming ninth graders. This is part of the focus of that transition program, and making sure that the students know if they do have a problem, that they can go to their upperclassmen leaders, they can go to their counselors, their teachers, or the administration in the high school. At the high school, they also do specific programs dealing with issues regarding girls and issues regarding boys. And part of learning to respect others is learning to respect people who are very different than you. So last year, one of the very successful programs offered at the high school, I heard about it from students and adults alike, was when the former Rutgers football player Eric LeGrand came to the high school to speak to students and was introduced, in fact, by one of our students who also has dealt successfully with challenges in his life. And that's an important way to learn about students with some differences and the need to respect all students. So So the work continues. This is not something that we're going to solve. This is something we need to continue to work on, and we need to continue to find the trends of where there are challenges. That's why we do the climate survey, and then we act on it and change how we address it in the schools, both with the students and the parents, and also all of our staff members. And we do that for a number of reasons, including, you can find the word respect in our mission statement. The very end of it talks about that we respect individual differences and diversity, and that's a large part of what we continue to do here because it is important for the next generation.
Questions, Mark?
Thanks for the information, very interesting. How often do we do this survey? Maybe you said and I didn't hear it.
I didn't. It is sometimes included, generally before we do each strategic plan, we do a community-wide survey, and there are some questions related to this. So the last time we did a full survey was 4 years ago, I believe, and then we did this one last year.
Because where I was going was how has the trend changed over time? Hopefully positively improved, but maybe we don't know if the questions are not comparable
Right.
and all.
We don't know.
This is the first time we've done this survey.
Exactly
this
like this,
survey.
yes, sorry. We've surveyed some similar questions, but not this survey.
Do we intend to do this annually and then compare?
Either annually or every other year, yes.
Can we add in the component of why?
Yes, we could. We could look at it and see how to add that in and maybe limit some questions, but add why for some questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so my suggestion, following up on Mark's intro, would be to treat this as a pre-year test, follow it up with the same grades as a post-test to see what the climate has revealed during the year with the same respondents, and if the plan is to administer it in the spring to plan events for the whole next year, then do the pre-test for the next incoming grades, 5, 8, 10.
So we're doing something somewhat similar.
All right.
As we've discussed at this table, all of our certificated staff are developing student growth objectives, and our counselors have been developing objectives based on issues of respect, issues of bullying, et cetera. And so they have been giving the students a pre-assessment in September, and then they are following up with it. So at the very least, we can have that, which dovetails into this. And then we can judge whether we'll do the whole thing, because we don't want to pre-assess and assess our students all the time.
Well, I think the critical area is, do you feel picked on,
Yes.
teased, made fun of, called names? I mean, that's the area that seems to have generated some rightful concern.
Right.
So I don't know how this question and those questions that you mentioned, counselors might be asking, mesh or
Yes, they absolutely do.
come together on.
So I just want to point one thing out, and it's always in how you ask a question in life. The way it was phrased is, students at this school are often teased and picked on.
No, it's not
that
me.
I am.
It's the perception.
So,
You're right.
For
Yeah,
example,
I see.
we know, I could tell you where we found incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying in each school last year. So it did exist. Now, you could have 50 students all aware of that one incident, and they're saying, yes, this did happen to a student in my school. So that question can be misleading as well.
So does that lead you to consider a different question or additional questions that might get at the root of an individual's feeling about themselves?
Yes, it
Because we
might.
have asked that in the past.
Yes. Yes.
Do I know someone, or I feel I have been,
Right.
the victim? Because, yeah, it might be misleading if the population assumes that they're all answering the question about the same incident, that could skew a result
Yes.
unfairly.
Yes, it could, but on the other hand, you know, all of the data, not just in Westfield, but it shows you that actually the percentage of students who generally are involved in teasing or bullying is a fairly small percentage. The large percentage are those who sit there and allow it to happen,
Yeah.
right? And so in a way, that question is still important because part of what we're trying to train is it's not okay to let it happen, whether it is on the internet, whether it is texting. It's not okay to read those and not say something about it and not address it, whether you tell an adult or whether you say something to the other student.
So that could be addressed more specifically by asking, have I been a bystander?
Yes. Yes.
Or, and another question, have I participated as, you know, to help someone who I observed being bullied?
Yes.
Or being harassed?
Lucy?
I just wanted to ask,
Can I
Oh,
follow
go
up
ahead.
on what Ginny said, just so we don't stop?
Sure.
I'm sorry, just so
That's
I
okay.
have, so, I have two things for Jen. So, you started with saying having a follow-up study, did you mean like,
I would
so
i-
the fifth grade students who took it last year will take it as sixth graders this year, is that what you meant? Or
Actually, I would administer it to the exact same respondents, the 5th, 8th, and 10th grade in the spring, to see how their perception of changed over the year, if it did it at all. And then I would administer it, I mean, just, if it's reasonable to do so, I would administer it to the upcoming, so the 4th,
Okay, so this was given
Seventh
to
and ninth.
fifth, eighth, and 10th graders in the spring.
I understand.
So they're now 6,
9.
9,
oh, okay,
and 11.
so then I would give it to
So-
6, 9, and the same people, and then the same population who moved into it. Those who moved into the
Although
population.
then you're, yeah, unfortunately, you're not getting any of the elementary schools because of the way we did the survey last year. Because there was the 5th grade, so now they're in 6th grade. So you're not getting the data from the elementary schools
No, you could ask them of this year's
Right.
5th grade.
But then you're not, right.
I would do 2 next year. I mean, in the spring, I'd do 2. I'd do this population and then the population that replaced them in these grades.
Okay, and so we
Okay.
can also ask
I don't
the-
know.
Yeah, I just wanted
I
to
don't know if that's too much.
understand.
You know,
Yeah.
you have to evaluate how much time it takes and the effort and the,
Right,
Right.
absolutely.
I just wanted to understand what you meant. And then the other question is, or comment is, I agree that a why box might be interesting. However, many people tend not to answer the why questions. If there's a, you know, if you have to type in your answer, lots of people don't respond to those in surveys, but I think you could do that. I also think we have to be careful about changing questions, because then you can't compare the data. You can add questions perhaps to clarify a question, but we really don't want to go and start changing a lot of the questions, because then you can't compare the data. Sorry, Lucy.
that's okay. I just wanted to ask, I know it seems like a small percentage, but to me, the area in red on page 5 where the teachers at my school treat students with respect. Just a couple things. I would be very curious for a why box there. For any
Right.
child to feel that any teacher is not treating them with respect, I have an issue with.
Right, I think anyone would, and that is one of those where a Y box might have been helpful. I mean, you
So
certainly have to
that's-
look at the.
That's, I think, like, that is an area where I think a Y box would be great. And just also curious as to what bullying or, you know, programs are done for the teachers, or, you know, any lunchroom aides or staff that work at the school, and how often.
Right. They are done for all the staff, including lunch aides. And they change, and they're tailored to what the issues are. In the beginning, I mean, there was a large focus on the law itself.
Right.
But that does change. For example, in some of the schools right now, they are focusing on what is happening in social media and on the internet because of the impact it has on the school. So, so yes, they're constantly done and infused into the different meetings that the staff have.
Yeah, I think we do a lot of work with teachers and training and workshops for how to handle bullying between students or conflict between students. But I think what Lucy was questioning is how much work are we doing with teachers about how they're talking to kids and how they're organizing their classrooms so that kids are feeling respected and not, I don't know on the
So
page.
that-
So what are we
that-
doing?
That
Are we
would
doing anything for that?
absolutely be part of regular supervision. Without a doubt, that is absolutely part of supervision. I would also say, there are wonderful things about surveys, but every 8th and 10th grader might not be completely thrilled to have the opportunity to take another survey that the school is offering, and may not take the survey all that seriously. So while you have to pay attention to the numbers, I don't know that every one of these is a serious answer.
Right, but this is the data we have.
It is, absolutely.
And I think Lucy's question was, and I agree that we need to look at it as a data point. Yes, we're not gonna throw everything up and make a big necessarily stink about it with this information, but
Right.
we need to be looking at it and saying,
Absolutely.
okay, what is happening here and
Yes,
what can we possibly do about it?
right.
I mean, and
Yes.
it could be simple as, sarcasm. Some teachers can be sarcastic and some children might be sensitive to that. So I would
right.
just be curious as to what form, or either way, it seems to be upsetting some, but they might not mean anything intentional by it. But
Yes.
at the same token, they might not even be aware of it. So
Right.
that's where I'm just was curious.
Yes, no, absolutely. And again, two different ways, both the classroom supervision would pick up on that, and secondly, the school safety teams are looking at it also.
So, talking about what we're actually doing to help, and we're doing a lot, and we're doing a lot of really great things, and having attended the John Halligan program a couple times, I think that is just one of the most powerful things I've ever sat through, and the students that at intermediate schools have sat through it, I think, feel the same way, and many still talk about it. There was a movie that came out this summer called Bully, which I just saw recently, which deals a little bit with that particular with Ryan Halligan, but also 3 other cases around the country. I would love if we could maybe screen that either as a community, but also I think it would be helpful to possibly add that, especially in the intermediate school where it seems that the majority of these problems happen, and have a discussion to see if it's something that we should be screening for students, or if it's something that I almost feel like in my world we have a lot of different compliance things that we have to view on a computer from time to time, and and you have to sort of check the box that you've seen this every year about money laundering or whatever goes on in my industry, shoe laundering and marks. But anyway, I think that something like that if even we provided the technology for everybody to see that once a year. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has seen it at the table, but I had to just see it in the last week, and
What rating
it's.
is it?
Hmm?
What rating is it?
What rating? I don't know what they rated it. I mean, it seemed very PG. I mean, I think other than the topic is obviously
Right.
very upsetting, but certainly I wouldn't have any issue with a middle schooler seeing it, but obviously I would want others to make that decision.
Sure,
So-
I can suggest that,
Yeah.
that we can look at it.
That's
Is it on
different than
Netflix?
It is. I saw it on demand, so it's probably just coming on
And is
Netflix.
that different than the Bully Project? Because there's also
Um,
called
I
the
think
Bully
so.
Project.
no, I think this was just called Bully.
Bully.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I think it just came out earlier in 2013 and just
Yes.
started showing up.
Well, I think it's great that we finally have the survey results, and yes, with survey results, you have to, there's more to them than just the actual numbers, and I think it does give you a good place to start, to look at things that maybe we can do better.
Right, absolutely.
And I would recommend doing it every year. I don't know how you do it, whether it's always 5th, 8th, and 10th, or whether it's follow-up, but I would definitely recommend doing it every year so that you are collecting enough data to see how we're doing.
All right, anyone else? Any other? Okay, I would ask the board to approve the minutes of the board workshop held on September 10, 2013, and the board meeting on September 17, 2013, and the private minutes held on September 10 and September 17, 2013. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the minutes?
For
Yes.
the board workshop held on September 10th, I was kind of hoping we started with these proposed goals, talked about them, and revised them to be approved at the following meeting. So I was hoping we could show that we actually did some work, because the way it reads now, it looks like that's what we came away with, and that's what we started with.
Anyone else?
I just need to abstain from the September 10th workshop, that's all.
All right.
I guess I do too.
Okay. Got that?
2 abstentions on the
Right,
10th.
on the 10th, right.
Yes, for everything else.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other abstentions? All right. Personnel, Mark.
I'd like the board to consider personnel motions, items 1 through 21. Second, please. Lucy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just want to point out on number 20, that is an item to approve the following winter coaching assignments, which are an attachment number 1. For those that don't know, the district has improved our process of review of coaches. Supervisor of athletics completes a review, not a survey, a review of each of the coaches that she's bringing up for renewal, and then we get to approve them here. I think there have been two or three seasons of those reviews now, and I've reviewed each of them. I'm sure others have as well, but I have. I think we've come a long way, Dr. Dolan, in the way the reviews are written, the information that's there. I think we also are including student athlete evaluations as part of the process by which the supervisor of athletics is writing her review. So, this is probably just a little picky. I think that in writing these reviews, and I think they've improved dramatically, I'd still like to see more constructive criticism, in them. I think the evaluation, the reviews, you can get either an excellent or a proficient or kind of a needs improvement, and still based upon the number of reviews that I've read, the number of coaches that are offered constructive criticism are still, it just makes it feel like everybody's great, and not that we shouldn't conjure up things that need improvement, but it seems like there's probably some more things that we can be talking about for constructive criticisms. I thought the last batch was really good, though. It was great to see, and hopefully those are good conversations between Sandy and each of the coaches, for each of them to get their feelings out. So.
Right, and often the conversations are really probably the most powerful part of it. And some of them don't even wait for a formal evaluation conference. And one good thing about coaching, I think, is you kind of know certain things right away, quicker than you do in some other fields. So that can help as well, I think.
Yeah, and I think having the reviews have also helped to formalize a little bit more what the criterion are. I know as a parent of an athlete when he was in the district, it still was unsure to me what the criterion for coaches being renewed, which is why this was something that was important to me that we continue. What are the criterion for renewing a coach? I think that's a little bit clearer today than it was even a year ago. And I hope we can continue to make that clear, and evaluating the coaches based upon that litany of criterion.
Right.
So.
I'd just like to reiterate what Mark said. I think that the process is improving. I hope that that it's not only for the benefit of us to know that that coaches are being reviewed, because I believe they play a very huge role in our children's lives. They spend a lot of time with our children, and they're putting in a lot of time, the coaches. So I think that hopefully the coaches are benefiting from the evaluations as well, so that I know they want to be the best that they can be, and I hope that the evaluations are proving to help them as well. And I think it is, like Mark said, articulating the expectations of what it means to be a coach in Westfield. And I hope it's helping everyone.
I think it's, at least from the ones, most of the ones, the coaches are taking it seriously, it appears, because I've read their response to the reviews, and some have gone to great pains to, and even if they agree, to talk about, how thankful they are of being able to work in Westfield and have the support of parents and the support of administration and, and the resources that come with being a good coach. So they are responding.
Absolutely. And you can't be a coach nor a teacher involved in putting on the musical or the band director. You can't do that if you're not committed. It's just impossible, because the amount of hours, the amount of different things you have to put together, the amount of times you have to change things because of the weather, the amount of adjustments you have to make because all of our students are so busy, the way you have to address students who have very specific needs and who may be going through some difficult things. They're in the middle of your season. I mean, it is truly a commitment, and they do put their heart and soul into it. So you're right that the evaluation should value that and address it when it's not in place, and you're absolutely right that the coaches take them very seriously.
Thank you for the efforts on that. Any other questions? Personnel? Ginny?
I have a question on number 9, Dr. Dolan.
Yes.
Is this still a shared cost?
This is not. I couldn't tell you exactly how many years ago, but it was in the past. The boosters had paid for one season of our athletic trainer. And
This is per season.
right.
Okay. Sorry.
But that is not the case anymore. The boosters still are very helpful with providing things like equipment, but not to pay for an actual person.
I missed that it was seasonal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dana, please.
Rich Messesa?
Yes.
Lizzie Beaver?
Yes.
Mia Carey?
Yes.
Mark Friedman?
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher?
Yes.
Roseanne Kursted?
Yes.
Jimmy Lights?
Yes.
Gretchen Oley?
Yes.
Mitch Slater?
Yes.
Anything else, Mark?
No, thank you.
All right, that brings us to facilities. Dana, could you just give us the update on the roofs and the school gyms at Edison and Roosevelt?
Sure. The roof at the high school, as of today, we have all the demolition complete. So all of the base sheet is down. They have started on the cap sheet in certain areas of the school. They are working sometimes during the day if they're doing work that is not at all disruptive, although the bulk of their work is still going on after hours and on the weekends. This weekend they will not be, or at least Saturday they will not be working because it's SATs. So we don't want to interfere at all with SATs. So they will not be there Saturday. But they're still on schedule for mid-October for the cap sheet to be installed, and then the metal will get done after that. At both Roosevelt and Washington, they are waiting on the metal. That's the only thing that's left to be done there, is to have the metal installation. And they're waiting on that, and they expect to have that and finish that. It's about 3 to 5 days of work to be done once they receive that. At Edison, the bleachers are installed and complete. And at Roosevelt, the damage that was done to the gym floor when the water, we had a water leak over the summer, will be repaired on Friday. We actually waited to have that repaired. We were ready to do it earlier, but the school had something that they wanted to use the gym on. So that work will be done Friday, and should be finished in, I think it's a week or so.
Okay, so the Edison gym's back in full use
Yes.
at Roosevelt in about a week.
Yep.
Thank you. Any questions on any of that? All right, seeing Have anything else? Long-range planning, Jim?
Long Range has a meeting on the calendar Monday, October 28th.
All right, policies, Gretchen?
Yes, I would like to ask the board to consider policy item number 1, to approve for second reading the policies listed there. Can I have a second?
Second?
Mitch. We looked at these policies at the end of August, at our meeting at the end of August, and I just have one thing to note with respect to 5516, the policy that we approved for first reading that night has been amended slightly because we made reference at the very end of 5516 to a number of other policies, and the numbering was just wrong. So it has been changed to accurately reflect other policies in the district, the numbers of other policies in the district, including the code of conduct in our harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. So, that being said, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Roseanne?
In 5516, students' use of personal technology.
Mm-hmm.
In the paragraph that we talk about the middle school, it says, the devices can only be used in the classroom for educational purposes. That's in the third paragraph. And then when we talk about the high school, we don't have the word only. And I'm thinking for consistency's sake, we might include only.
We can do that. I think that was definitely part of our conversation the last go-around and consistent with what the high school is intending to implement as well, right?
Just ask a question, only this came up. I had a couple of parents ask me about this. They've had a number of coaches have said to kids, keep your phones on. I'm going to need to text you during the day if there's any changes. And I just want to know, is that complying with the policy? I mean, or what we're working on? Someone asked me about it, and I said, I know we're redoing the policy, and I just wanted to be clear on what, I mean, should the coaches be telling students that, or?
I think if the students are in the cafeteria, where they're allowed to use it, or they're in the student center, or they're in the courtyard, there they can access a message. That's my understanding. I'm looking at, we have two of our assistant principals from the high school, and I want to make sure that I'm answering that correctly. Yes.
So as long as they're in one of the areas that they can turn it on there, okay.
But certainly not in the middle of a class.
All right. Thanks.
Ginny?
Okay. At the bottom of that same policy, 5516, the bottom of the first page, there was a reference to music, use of this device for music, and said keep one ear free, and that was the whole, that information was deleted. I don't see, did I miss it?
Here it is.
It's,
Oh, it's combined in the last paragraph?
yeah.
Okay.
I think we moved it.
Going back to gifted policy.
Well, can I just ask, since we have folks from the high school here, I just wanted to clarify, the board had gotten some communication and some concern that students at the high school were being allowed during downtime in classroom to turn on their phones and otherwise play games if they were otherwise not occupied. That certainly isn't the intent of this policy, and can you just confirm that that's not, in fact, what we're communicating?
Come up to the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
The way it was communicated to the teachers and to the students is that the students may use their cell phones in class for educational purposes, and that it shouldn't be a distraction to the learning environment. So texting and gaming during class is certainly not the intent of the high school administration either. But in the free times, in those other areas, that's all permissible.
And the determination as to whether it's allowed to be used for educational purposes is completely at the teacher's discretion.
At the teacher's discretion, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that email was actually, the request was broader, I think, right? So not to allow it anywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is
Was the part that.
Yeah, but that is not a path that we've taken. I mean, we've
Correct.
considered, the policy committee, I'm sure, considered what appropriate uses are.
We did. As a matter of fact, this policy, Dr. Dole and I this is a mandated policy, so we are required to have a policy on student use of personal technology, and our policy was so old that it referenced pagers and as one of the wireless devices. So in updating our policy, we actually looked at the policies of some other districts to see what they were doing, and ours is consistent with, not that we have to do what other districts is doing, I'm just saying that was part of what we took into consideration when we updated our policy. with input, of course, from the administrators.
Have teachers noted in the first 6 weeks of school with the discussion that this policy was up for review, more incidences in the classroom where kids are taking out their phones and using it in ways that are not educational?
Well, this policy, we really tried to enact most of this policy last year. We start to educate our teachers and staff members. So we really were trying to really institute many of these things last year. And we haven't had any really negative impact from teachers, negative responses. We do have some students that don't follow the rules, and those phones will get sent down to the office of the attendance office where the assistant principals are, and we'll hold those phones. But one of the things that we did notice last year is we didn't have any repeat offenders. So most of the students that had their phone taken away, and you know, it was a one-time deal, so we felt like, you know, we were moving in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the board about 5516? Okay, Ginny, you want to talk about?
2464. I noticed it's the same correction, and I noticed it in a couple of places. I'll tell you.
Should they hang out in case? Maybe you can, in case we have questions from the public, would you mind just waiting until we vote on that? Sure. Thank you.
So close.
Need an exit on this side.
So go ahead, Jenny, I'm sorry.
I noticed in several places, and I can tell you afterwards, we don't need to do it now. The coordinator of gifted education was just not corrected, and it says supervisor. So, and I noticed that was a change, a global change throughout, so 2A, 2B, which category is that? We're going away. A, 2A, 2B.
So it says supervisor, and it should be saying coordinator.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then on the final, well, that's page 4 and 5, there's another one. 4, there's one.
Got it.
Acceleration 2B, and then on page 5. the
Okay,
top.
so that's a global change. we'll
It
make.
is.
Okay,
But otherwise, thank you.
great. Anybody else from the board have questions on the policies for second reading tonight? Do you want to?
And ask the public, any members of the public have any questions on any of the policies?
You're clear. Thanks for waiting.
No one's come to the podium?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Lucy Beegler.
Yes.
Lynn Terry.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Roseanne Kirkland.
Yes.
Tina Rice.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes,
Mitch Slater.
And that's a yes.
nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and programs. Roseanne.
You have an addendum at your table about field trips, so I would like the board to approve items number 1 and number 2 under curriculum. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Anne. The first is, as you know, last meeting, we approved a large list of trips. And as I noted, when we talked about it, that we might be getting some more trickling in as the year progresses. And it just so happens that that did happen. The field trip, for number 1, it's the field trip for Girls Learn International, and they just received notice that they would be going on that. And that's very exciting. Does Dr. Dolan want to talk about that a bit?
It is very exciting that some of the students from our Girls Learn International are invited to the UN because on that day they will be recognizing the Day of the Girl Child and the fact that so many girls across the globe are not even allowed to have education or there's no way for them to travel for education. And so we have students from Edison, Roosevelt, and the high school who are attending this and will be participating in that day. It's really quite a opportunity for our youngsters involved in that program.
Thank you.
Yes, she's going. My daughter's going. She made my husband drive all the way because she forgot her permission slip. It's the last day, I have to go.
That's great.
Yeah. So he had to leave work and go.
That's
she's
wonderful.
excited.
It should be a wonderful experience. I'll be interested in hearing about it.
Yeah.
And then the second one is also very exciting news, so do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Of course, it is wonderful. So each year, the New Jersey School Boards Association has a conference in Atlantic City. This year, one of their sessions is focusing on innovative uses of technology in the classroom. And so they have invited 2 of our teachers and 2 of our students who are involved in the American Studies class, which is a class where it is a BYOD class, where every student is using a device. They piloted it last year, and they are going to talk about how that worked last year and how that really transformed the education in that class. So we're very happy they're going to be able to participate in that panel.
Any questions, comments?
I would just add, I'm sorry that the schedule has put them on Thursday afternoon. It's a disservice to the topic.
That's the last day of the conference.
It's the last day and the last few minutes of the conference. So while I'm disappointed, I'm very excited that they've been asked to participate, but it's too bad that they've got.
I think they're going to keep the crowd in Atlantic City myself.
Let's hope.
They're keeping me there, so I'll
be there.
definitely be there.
Any comments, questions? Take a vote.
Dana? Rich Matesic?
Yes.
Lucy Biegler?
Yes.
Ann Carey?
Yes.
Mark Friedman?
Yes.
Brandon Galvin?
Yes.
Roseanne Kurzbek?
Yes.
Ginny Letts?
Yes.
Gretchen Rulli?
Yes.
Rich Slater?
Yes.
That's all.
All right, finance, Mark.
I'd like the board to consider finance items numbers 1 through 11. Number 11, I'd just like to make mention, we're accepting a gift of $7,500 from Mr. and Mrs. Phillips to Edison Intermediate School for the purchase of technology equipment specifically within the gifted classroom. So thank you very much for that. Can you get a second?
Second.
Roseanne, thank you. Questions?
Dr. Nolan, could you just talk about number 3, or Dana? It's just it's a large amount, and I know there was some conversation just about, can you just talk about how many students that is, and is it replacing costs that we otherwise would have spent?
So, yeah, the cost for the effective school solutions, we have some students with very specific needs who, some of whom have actually been attending programs out of the district because they really require some very specific support. With using this company, we were able to bring back students both at the intermediate level. We have a class at Roosevelt School, and also at the elementary level, where the students can be successful in our schools with this daily ongoing support. So I bet Dr. Weissman can tell me more specifically how many students that is in each school. I have a guess, but it might have changed since I know.
There are currently 9 students. The contract allows for up to 9 students at the elementary level and up to 18 students at the secondary level. Currently, we have less than 9 students being serviced at the elementary level and and less than 18 at the middle school, but we're at the midpoint in terms of being at capacity. So we have room to grow, but if you calculate out the full amount of what it would cost to send those students to out-of-district placements, it's still a cost savings for the district. Absolutely, I have no doubt that the students that are being serviced through ESS at both Wilson and Roosevelt are helping to maintain students in district, and we have been able to bring students from out-of-district, costly out-of-district placements back. So
Is
it
there,
is a cost. It is a tremendous cost savings.
Is it more than a staff member, a full-time staff member would be able to?
So currently, we are contracting for 3 licensed clinicians, 1 at the elementary program and 2 at the intermediate program. So it's 3 full-time individuals. And the services that are being provided include family support in terms of family meetings and counseling and resources, daily individual therapy sessions for the students in the program, and a whole host of other supports throughout the school day, including crisis intervention if needed, and other services to students who may not necessarily be special education students. The services are available to general education students as well who might need that level of support.
Okay,
So
thank
it is a wide range of services that they're providing to us.
Okay.
The other benefit of the key to the program was not only to save the district money, but also to provide services to students in their home district. And we believe that this is the perfect population and enables them to be educated in the least restrictive environment, which is in line with the special education code and special education mandates in general. We've been very pleased so far.
Dr. Weissman, will you be evaluating the outcome of the program toward potentially hiring resources within district if this is a program that we might expect to move forward?
We have considered, that was one of the things that we kind of talked through, we have considered hiring our own staff to provide these services. One of the limitations in terms of doing that is being able to provide the clinicians with the supervision, the clinical supervision that they're required to have in order to be fully effective with these students, because they are licensed clinical social workers. We don't presently have anybody on staff that could supervise these individuals, so that's included in the cost of the contract. And there is a clinical coordinator who comes on site weekly to work with the clinicians in both Wilson and Roosevelt. So that was a huge consideration, but it's a limitation in terms of what we can provide in terms of a clinical level of supervision. So we did consider the possibility of just hiring additional counselors, but it's really not.
Not
what the students need.
What certification would the clinical supervision require?
They would also be required to have a license and a number of years of experience in the field, and some additional experience in terms of supervising clinicians who are also working with clients, and that is another cost.
And that's working out when you have the once a week drop in and oversight and.
Correct. So not only do the coordinators from ESS come on site, they also have private sessions with the clinicians off-site so that they're not taking up time during the school day and pulling away the services from the students. So that's also included. It's a key component.
Is it a set rotation where they go, or it can be an on-need basis for the elementary level, or do they pop in all the time, even if?
The counselor or the clinic coordinator, because they're different roles.
The licensed clinician, are they the one that?
So the
go?
clinicians are on site 5 days a week, full time, and then the coordinator is on site once a week in both of the schools.
Okay.
For a full day. Or actually, I think they're there it's like 2 half days.
Okay.
But it's the equivalent of a full day a week.
I just like what you had said, that if someone that's not in this type of, need, if it's
Yes.
regular, that they
They're a
can
tremendous-
lend them out to them. Or
Yes.
something that may arise during the day that's unexpected.
Absolutely. They're a tremendous resource in terms of community linkages with mental health
Yeah.
facilities for general education student or special education
Yeah.
student who may not need that level of support all the time, but may go into crisis and need to be referred someplace.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
So do they go to staff meetings, and they're not within Achieve New Jersey, so they don't get evaluated that way, they get evaluated through the supervisor of ESS, but do they?
Correct.
Go to staff meetings and team meetings and all of that?
They do go to team meetings. They attend like their building. Like for example, at Roosevelt they have core meetings.
Mm-hmm.
At Wilson they have meetings with the building administration, and then they have meetings with the child study team and with the teachers, and they have like team coordinated meetings. They do from time to time attend building faculty meetings, but that's not required of them because they're not contracted employees, but if there's information that's relevant to them as part of the building, and they have sort of infused themselves into the building so that they're part of the staff, even though they're not contracted, district contracted employees. But the contract is evaluated by myself and building administration and everyone else. I mean, sort of we get feedback from and parents and child study team in terms of how the program is going, and from year to year we will evaluate how the contract's going, if we need to make adjustments and make sure everybody's happy with the services.
Making adjustments would mean maybe this particular clinician is not working out here.
Correct. So if
and
we were,
they'll be willing to try a different clinician if we agree with the program and
Yes.
that person just wasn't the right fit.
correct, and the contract is year to year, so if we were not happy or satisfied with the services or a clinician in particular, we could eliminate the contract.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Dana?
Chris Mattesa,
Yes.
Lucy Biegler,
Yes.
Hank Harry. Yes. Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Roseanne Kirsten.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Anything else, Mark?
No, thank you.
I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record. And with that, move into legislation. Ann.
No report.
Thank you. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Any technology committee reports? Mitch?
We are meeting on the 25th, and we'll have a report
Thank you.
at the next meeting.
Liaison reports. Ginny?
I attended a general membership meeting of the Parent Teacher Council on September 19th. We had two administrators give very nice presentations. Mr. Pinero brought Janine Gatto and Adam Peasy to talk about the new website design, get some feedback from parents that were in the audience, and I think we got some very good comments especially about sharing website resource information across teachers, student access, and whether or not it was going to be, students would be capable of getting notes or explanations from teachers that they didn't have within their own classroom. And it's now a restriction, but perhaps there will be other methods of getting to that information to help students who apparently use that more commonly now to help them study and prepare themselves. Second presentation, Dana gave an update on the bond replacement referendum for our roofs, as explained in the announcements tonight by Mark. And again, there was good feedback on simplifying the language for public understanding of what it is they're required to do. We all know how complicated it is to try to represent the information about what we're doing and why. So that was well received. It was a good meeting. Very informative as also, always.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So no more liaison reports. I would then recognize the public again for questions and or comments on any topic. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, we do have a private session? We do have a private session tonight. I would ask the board to approve the following resolutions. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, personnel, pending or anticipated litigation, and pending or anticipated contract negotiations. And be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? We will go into private session.